Welcome back to You Do Woo, y'all. I have one of my good friends who also says y'all. My good friends, her name is Sarah Harris. We are going to be chatting a little bit today about alcohol. And I'm really excited about this episode. If you have been in my world for since the beginning, since July 2020, you have heard about my relationship with alcohol, and it has evolved in a lot of ways. There was some really long breaks that I took, some short breaks that I took, times where I was pretty vulnerable about different things I was struggling with. Um, and now have finally gotten to a place where it's not part of my life at all. And I might share a little bit of that in here too. But I wanted y'all to hear from my guest today, Sarah Harris, because Sarah, you're like one of the most down to earth, least judgmental, chill, I mean, I know we're neurotic in our own way, different ways, but like non-neurotic, like pretty chill people that don't drink anymore, and like a very relatable story, I feel like, with alcohol to a lot of other moms, women our age, maybe younger, maybe older. We're both 40, newly 40 within the past year, and also newly non-alcohol drinkers within the past year. So welcome to the show. I'm super excited for everybody to meet you, but I'd love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, your background, and this whole relationship you've had with alcohol. I don't know when that started, if it was like teens or 20s or whatever, and then how you got to this point of it not being in your life anymore. Take it away, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. I'm so excited to be here today. Gosh, what a great introduction. Yes, all the things. I'm Sarah Harris. I'm a mom of two, and I live in North Carolina. And yeah, I just turned 40 in May. And I have a 6-year-old and a just turned 4-year-old. And yeah, I mean, found myself in the pandemic with a newborn and a toddler, and sort of woke up feeling like life was sort of happening to me. And I had a really full, fun, wonderful life, but it was very much felt like I was living in autopilot, kind of like going through the motions. And it took a while for me to sort of see alcohol as sort of a contributor to that. And to this sort of feeling of like lackluster. And I had been a drinker forever, really. Like, I always say I was conditioned to drink. I feel like I come from sort of like a drinking family, or an open to drinking family, like, and not in a way that there was any drama or overdoing it per se, but it was like, I do feel I was sort of modeled, when you come home from work, you can unwind with a drink. And on the weekends, drinking is fun. And so absolutely, sort of, I started experimenting a little bit in high school, and would, binge. And then in college, I felt like I had more of like a routine through the week and would like drink on the weekends and things. And really, I kind of think it might have been when I started like graduate school. It became that, oh, I've had a really hard day and like I've earned this, in the evening. And so for me, one of the first things I really like was questioning was this like daily need I felt to, like, that I needed alcohol to unwind at the end of the day. Because what I was finding, like, really with my newborn, in like 2021 and things, was like, this isn't sustainable, and it's not really vibing with like the kind of mother and the just feeling I want to have around motherhood.
Mm.
So I like, that's when like my sober curious journey, I think, really began in like 2022, when I really would intentionally take like a day or two off in the week. Um, and I really kind of had to start there. I didn't drink during my pregnancies, and that was very easy, but I did very quickly go back into like wine in the evening. And I feel like, as you know, your listeners, we know like mommy wine culture is like such a thing on Instagram. And I feel like I was really following like that crowd on Instagram and hadn't yet opened up into this world of like, there's actually a different way.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, in like the summer of 2022, so now about 2 years ago, I just felt burnt out and I thought I'm gonna like start taking intentional breaks. And did that like through the rest of that year, which was, like I said, sort of mostly like a night off here and there through the week. And then in 2023, it was longer and longer breaks where I would do a week or then 2 weeks or, you know, then three. And in February of 2024, I quit drinking.
Mm.
Yeah.
And what got you to that point, February 2024? Like, did something happen? Like, or was it just like an epiphany, or just like I can do this, or what
Yeah.
happened for you?
It was kind of like all of the above a little bit. I mean, like, right, I had had this sort of experience for, yeah, I mean, by that point, like a year and a half or more, really thinking about this. And a big piece of it for me what is the labels. You know, I didn't feel like an alcoholic. I didn't feel like I needed recovery. You know, I feel like for the longest part of our lives, the only option people had was AA. And
Mm-hmm.
none of that felt resonant to me. And so all I knew for a while was I kind of have an issue with, you know, my sort of daily routine around drinking and wanted to cut back. What surprised me was sort of the challenges that came with that, like that it was hard and I thought it would be easy. And I think that's where, you know, we really do get like habituated to alcohol and we do sort of, you know, people can easily find themselves at like a level of dependency that I think can be unexpected, especially for women. You know, in my mind, I thought it should be easy to just take a little break. And it wasn't. I
Mm-hmm.
was thinking about it constantly. The mental gymnastics it took to go to an event and only have one glass of wine. I mean, like that was difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of what really I think awoken in me this like, why, like, where did this come from? You know, like I thought I could just quit. Um, and so I really just really kind of started following, like stumbled upon some accounts about like sober curiosity. And I do think it was sort of coming more into the mainstream at that time too, which is helpful. But yeah, it was almost as if you hear like these whispers from the universe became like screams.
Mm-hmm.
In February. So right, I had all of these like intuitive nudges, and just like signs and synchronicities about it. And then in February of 2021, I mean 2021, 2024, I had taken most of January off for like dry January. And went to my hometown and had dinner with a girlfriend who is younger than me and almost died of cirrhosis
Whoa.
a few months before in
Whoa.
December. And she had suffered in this in complete silence,
Oh.
really kind of not telling our like friend group. And yeah, it was like sad and shocking. And there was like a real part of me that thought, like, if you don't change, like this could be you.
Yeah.
And you know, she's having to like undergo just periodic treatments and things. And but yeah, this thought that like, oh right, we were sort of like party girls and we, you know, were bartenders and we were just sort of like in that world where drinking was just kind of the norm. And but it was like, gosh, she's, you know, 35 and look what has happened to her
Mm-hmm.
health, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And it just so happened, like I had been listening to some Sober Curious podcasts and things. And one of my favorite mentor who I found actually heard on your podcast, Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
through with Euphoric AF. and was listening to her podcast, and she told the story of her grandmother um and quitting drinking, and some connections about that. And I had sort of chosen a ladybug as my sign from the universe. And it was my grandmother who got sober like 30 years ago. She's died now, but it was her birthday. And I'm listening to this podcast about Carolina. She's talking about her grandmother and ladybugs. And I was just like, this is it.
Yeah.
I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
this is my like sober versary, as they say. And that was February 21st. And I just decided, I just declared like I'm now alcohol free. And that was, I mean, yeah, that was after a year of some breaks and just really intentional thought.
I love it. I love it. So kismet too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Carolina is I know she's your personal coach, which
Mhm.
is freaking awesome. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but I love Carolina's book, the Euphoric AF book, and her story because there's so many stories of people, releasing alcohol from their life, just not having it in their life anymore. And sometimes they include rock bottom moments or sometimes half, I don't know what you call that. Like I had many, many instances of like not total rock bottoms, but like, whoa, this is not my best self. This is not okay. This is shameful. Like what's going on here is shameful. Um, but it was more so just like a mental health, spiritual thing for her. And I love that. I love that there's more and more stories of that it doesn't have to be getting to a rock bottom moment. And sometimes we require a rock bottom moment or like halfway there situation or whatever. There's a couple of different things that I wanted to talk about because when you were sharing your story, you were talking about like AA and being in recovery and all of that kind of stuff. And I do think I have lots of friends and clients and people that I've met in this work that did go to AA and it served them really, really well. And I think that these days there's so many resources. So if that's not something that you feel like is for you, and Sarah will share what resources she has here at the end of the episode as well. But like the word recovery triggers me for some
Mhm.
reason. And it's so funny because like a couple weeks ago, I interviewed my friend Sarah, who's a human design parenting coach, and she said that the word ritual triggers her. And I'm like, whoa, the idea of a ritual makes me feel so good and like relief and whatever.
Yeah.
And so isn't that funny how different words
Mhm.
do different things in us? The word recovery, for some people, it might feel like relief, like the
Mhm.
idea of recovery and being in recovery might feel just new and light and relieving and wonderful. And if that is you, then be in recovery because that is your thing
Yeah.
and that feels good to you. For me, the word recovery feels constricting. Um, and doesn't feel good. Like, I don't think I'll ever say I am in recovery, but at the same time, I am not sober in that I still partake in other substances. Some things are poison to me, some things are medicine to me. And I don't partake in alcohol, but I haven't, well, I don't think that I would do cocaine ever in the future. It's just not medicine for me. Maybe for some people it is, I don't know. But like there's a few things, probably won't ever try heroin, like different things like that are just off the table, including alcohol. And everything else is like something that could possibly be medicine for me in certain times and instances. So I can't call myself sober. And I don't say that I'm in recovery because to me that sounds like no freaking fun. Yeah, and FYI, Sarah's current brand is Fulfilled AF, which is alcohol free and as fuck. We
Yes.
both like to cuss a little bit. Um, so yeah, what is that like? And it's not like a judgment. Like several of my best friends are in recovery, and that's works for them and it's great. So there's not like me casting judgment on like if you went through AA, if you're totally sober, if you're in recovery, whatever. But I'm just saying for anybody who's out there who thinks that they have to like be totally sober or go through recovery and like be in recovery the rest of their life. I also know people who took 10 years off of alcohol and now have it every once in a while because it truly affects their system differently. I
Mhm.
don't feel like that's going to be the case for me, because I've done a long break and gone back to it before and it just wasn't there. Maybe if there's some crazy miracle, whatever, but I just like don't even, you'd have to pay me millions and millions of
Mhm.
dollars to drink a glass of wine. I'd
Yeah.
probably do it for a couple $1 million and then I'd need to throw up right away. But I don't have any like rules on myself. It is just not a part of my life in any way. Um, like how does that feel for you? How do you plan on helping people who maybe have that feeling of like, oh my God, am I gonna like now have to say I'm an alcoholic or sober totally or in recovery? Like, how does that vibe for you?
Mhm. I mean, that's just like such a great, like, just sets the stage of the landscape. Cause right, it's when you start telling people, I think that's where a lot of this comes up, right? Because a lot of people automatically assume and go to that like you must have had a problem,
Mhm.
like in our culture and society. I think right now it's because it's sort of not the norm. And I do think it's like getting better, but right, it's like why would you do this as like a personal choice
Mhm.
if you don't have a problem, quote unquote.
Mhm.
And so I think that surprises people. And I do that think that's one thing that can hold people back is the experience of having to talk to others about their choice to be alcohol free.
Mhm.
And that's where I really love like the alcohol free label and in particular sober curious because right, it opens it up to people who right who may not like resonate with that recovery and like a model of doing it, which I agree like right really works for some people. Like you really can get so much support in that and community. But there's not a lot of space for sort of other interpretations, I feel like, and so I agree, like I am a big proponent of like plant medicine, and I do think in some of the sort of sobriety community, even things like CBD are like frowned upon, and I
Mhm.
never see that. I agree, like I don't ever see myself sort of getting to that point. So I love like alcohol free as a like this is a intentional choice, right, around like one, very toxic um thing that is pervasive in our society too, which I think is the interesting thing because so much of these other plant medicines and right even illegal drugs, obviously they're just not as mainstream.
Mhm.
But alcohol is everywhere. And so when you say no, and you say, I'm saying no as a personal choice, not because I have a problem, that can really trigger other people. And
Mhm.
when you tell people you're alcohol free, how they respond is often a big surprise because people really get defensive almost, and they'll say
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I don't drink that much," or and it's like my being alcohol free is saying nothing about
Yeah.
your consumption of alcohol.
Yeah.
This is a decision I made because alcohol wasn't serving me.
Yeah.
And like I also right I feel like I am a fun, positive person, and I think that is a big fear. People think, "Oh, if I don't drink, like I'm not going to be able to do things. I'm not going to be able to put myself out there and I won't be fun anymore."
Mhm.
And so for me, I never wanted to quit alcohol from a place of like I'm depriving myself
Mhm.
of something or I'm going to miss out on
Yep.
something. Which
Yep.
is where I really think a plant medicine and things can help,
Yes.
honestly get you kind of through early urges and sort of adjusting to like life without alcohol.
Yes. So I took a whole year off, a little over 12 months in 2021, some of 2020, most of 2021. And I remember that was such an interesting journey, taking a year off. Highly recommend. I mean, if you can do it, highly recommend it. Just even
Mhm.
like that made me feel good to be like, I can just do a year. I can do a year and then I can see from there what I'm going to do. And there was times during that year that I was like, I'm never going to drink again. And then there were times where I'm like, maybe I will and see how I operate with it or whatever. But I do remember one thing that I sort of had, I don't know, that was different than that break than now, not having it in my life at all, is during that whole 12-ish months, I was a little bit on my high horse about it. And so like not consciously always, but subconsciously judged others when they were drinking or like felt bad for them or like it was this weird superiority deal. And I think I've gone through like 11 ego deaths since then, since 2021. So now I'm like at a place where it's so weird. Like I've talked about this before, but I'll like go out with people and I'd like prefer that they drink. I don't want anybody getting sloppy or mean or whatever around me, but I'm like, and so then I'm looking at, I'm like, okay, is there a codependency? Is it a social anxiety thing for me? And I'd rather other people be buzzed a little bit and then whatever. Like I don't ever like the now I don't even have the desire to drink, but I sort of have the desire for other people to drink to just like
Mhm.
chill out a little bit. I'm like, what is that about? I did not experience that in 2021. I was sort of like, I wish there was no alcohol anywhere and this would just make my life so much easier if no one drank. And now I'm just like, let everybody, I mean, I don't want people being unsafe, but I'm like, let everybody else do what they want to do. It's actually in some situations more comfortable for me if other people are drinking. So that's a whole, if anybody knows if that's a whole other rabbit hole I need to go down, I'm sure it's like a codependency thing. But I'm like, it feels good because I don't feel like I know my husband, he doesn't drink very much at all, but he'll have, beer every once in a while. And he like doesn't feel judged by me these
Mhm.
days, which is a good thing. But I also, I mean, deep down, I would love for like my friends who do drink, I would freaking love to go do like a girls' weekend where we like just do plant medicine. There's no alcohol in sight, and we have like deep conversations, and it's just like totally, in my words, sober, like not alcohol
Yeah.
related. That's like my soul desire, honestly. But it really doesn't bother me now when people are drinking. And we're almost at the end of summer. So you'll have to tell me what this has been like for you. Summer is very much a time of drinking and being on patios and like being by the
Mhm.
water and drinking
Yeah.
and whatever. So I was like a little bit nervous of how that was going to go and if any desire was going to come back in. And it really hasn't. There is like a interesting brain wiring thing of like you drive by a patio and people are having happy hour and it's like, ooh, old me would really be thirsty for a
Mhm.
rosé right now, you know? And I'm like, oh, I do want to go sit on a patio, but I'm totally fine having like a sparkling water or a cava or whatever, like it or iced tea. Like my new favorite right now is Arnold Palmer, like half
Mhm.
lemonade, half iced tea.
Mhm.
So good. Um, but yeah, like how has that been for you? Okay, sorry, I'm interrupting myself before I let you answer. Two things. One thing I just wanted to say I'm so excited about to introduce all my listeners to you is that you just stopped drinking for good this year. I think so many times people get sober coaches or alcohol free coaches. I just call them sober coaches, even, and you can decide to be sober from whatever substance. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be everything. I'm like, it's so funny when people are in recovery, but they're still on Instagram. I'm like, you're not in recovery.
I
Instagram,
mean,
like that
very addictive.
is a dopamine fucker upper. Um, but I just love that people have access to you because I think that sometimes having somebody who's just a few months ahead of you in this journey,
Yeah.
and a few years ahead because you did start taking breaks in 2020. So several years ahead, but like as far as like no alcohol in your life at all, February 2024. And I think that that's such, sometimes we're like, oh, I have to find this expert who's been sober for 10 years to like guide
Right.
me. Sometimes that's not very relatable because you're like, I can't do 10 years of no alcohol. That seems preposterous. Like like can't even think that far ahead in my life. So I'm very grateful for that. But how has that, yeah, how has that shown up for you? Have you like judged others like how I did when I took my first long break? Do you like being around people who are drinking? How has the summer been for you? Share any of
Yeah,
those.
great questions. I mean, I would agree. I think when it's early on and you might still be feeling sort of unsure of your footing, other people can be very triggering, you know? And it's like, yeah, I do think it's really important to sort of be mindful of your energy and like where it's at and like the things you're trying to do in the early days of like a break or quitting, you know? And that's why I do think like, and I will think you will find a wide variety of sort of like coaching vibes, where, yeah, I mean, like they expect sobriety or, right, you know, these agreements like can vary. I very much more ascribe to the coaches who are like, a break is beneficial, you know, every day that you can go and add, you know, the times at which you take breaks is beneficial to you know, to your mental health, to your physical well-being, you know, to the healing of your body. Like, so I would never you know, like say a break isn't worth it. Because I do think like, and that helped me. Like, I know I don't think that I would have been successful in like actually quitting alcohol had I like, you know, said, I'm never going to drink again. Like it,
Mm-hmm.
that is right. I can't have this sort of constriction, you know, is the word you used around that choice. Like I want it to be a very like empowered um choice on like my terms. And you know, so yeah, to just to take a break, like write a chapter, you know, is a word that people use a lot. And write like just a break from alcohol, I think is such a great starting point than like putting the pressure on yourself to just quit.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you will find yourself in social situations that are very challenging, I do think.
Mm-hmm.
I can be around alcohol, and like my husband also continues to drink like very moderately and not a lot. And we have alcohol in our house, like, because we do love like hosting and, you know, so I am grateful that I do have like a comfort level with it being in my environment. I do think that varies for people,
Mm-hmm.
like based on their experience, you know, and that might not be the right answer for everyone. Um, but for me and like my journey, I think, right, the ability to be around it without it triggering me, like, is a sign I'm growing, right? Like, it's a sign I'm sort of like heading in the right place. Because there were times, you know, last year where it's like if my partner and I weren't like, right, taking a break at the same time, like, yeah, I would have been like triggered. And I know like there were some like work events and social events where like it was helpful to like almost pretend I was drinking, you know, by carrying around something that looked like a
Mm-hmm.
cocktail, then go through the like, oh, I'm not drinking anymore, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think especially like in the early days of like a sober curious journey, it's just really helpful to plan for, you know, you're being around other people. And I think be prepared for some discomfort because there are so many firsts. And you're absolutely right about this summer. Like this has been like I've had like no urges, but as you said, like the pool is it for me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, oh, right, like a little canned drink at the pool, like sounds amazing.
Uh-huh.
You know, which makes me so grateful for the amazing like non-alcoholic choices we have now because I mean, I remember even being pregnant with my first son or with my first child in 2017, and that was still like there was like two choices of non-alcoholic beer,
Mhm.
and so in, what, 6 years, I mean, the choices of like even to have a drink that makes you feel fancy or whatever, that doesn't contain alcohol is like huge and new. So
Yeah.
that's a big help to me. Like, and so I absolutely have a fridge full of soda water and
Yeah.
and alternatives. And every now and then, if I have a big event, and for family vacation this year, I did go buy de-alcoholized wine, which
Mhm.
I actually had never done.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Like early on, I kind of just would like switch to soda water. But for me, it was like I want to feel like I'm part of the party or whatever. And those were the couple times I did get like a bottle of wine with the alcohol
Yeah.
removed,
Yeah.
which was fun.
We're okay. Just so everybody knows, save the date. In a couple of weeks, we are going to be doing a workshop. It's a happy hour workshop, and we're going to be going, Sarah and I are going to be going over a lot of the nitty-gritty of like how we actually did this and rewiring your brain and not doing it from like total willpower. Like it's a very much I'm going to be sharing a lot of the tools that I used and Sarah will too, but like how I even got to a place of being done with it without willpower because it is very possible. Um so we're going to do that. It's going to be on Friday, August 23rd. Do I have the date right? I don't have. Okay, Friday, August 23rd at 1 p.m. Central Time. It's 2 p.m. Eastern. Sarah's in North Carolina. So save that date. I'll put the link in the show notes because I would love for y'all to come with your questions, be very vulnerable, be transparent. If there's any questions you want to submit anonymously and have us answer, send me an email, allison@youdowoo.com. I'll put it down. I won't say your name and we'll do those anonymous questions first, but then we'll open it up to everybody with questions that you have. There is no judgment from us whatsoever. There, I mean, there, I have all the drinking stories, like all of
Yeah,
them, all the shameful drinking stories, parenting stuff, marriage stuff, like just everything,
same,
everything.
same,
I've
same.
experienced it all. I got a DWI, like all the things. And you don't have to have any of these like negative things to say, I don't want this part of my life anymore, or I want to drink less, or I want to take breaks, or whatever. Something that is happening, and this is just energetically, human design, all of that kind of stuff. We are becoming more sensitive as humans to external things that can a lot of people are changing the way that they're eating. I know a lot of like vegans are starting to eat meat again. A
Yeah.
lot of meat eaters like me are doing way less meat. Everybody's changing the way that they have been operating the past many decades. Some people might start utilizing certain substances that are medicine to them. Some people might start seeing that substances that have always been okay with them, like alcohol or any other drugs or marijuana or anything else, caffeine, like that's a big thing. I'm more sensitive to caffeine than I used to be. Um, we like either start using them or stop using them or take breaks or whatever. Every human's very, very different as it pertains to what is medicine for you and what is poison for you. And I think the reason that that is happening is for us to sort of go inside to see like how things are affecting us. And I very much feel alcohol is that way too. And most of you guys know my story with what happened last year, but when the last time I did drink last year, this voice came to me. I don't know if it was God, my higher self. I don't know if I was like half asleep or what the heck it was, but it was a situation and it said, "Hey, uh I'm removing your desire for alcohol now. You won't ever have the desire to drink ever again." And so far, 9, 10 months in, I haven't. And it said in 10 years from now, no humans are going to be drinking. Like nobody's going to be drinking alcohol. So you get to go first. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm taking it as truth because it helps me, but like I didn't create that. That just like came. So I'm not surprised, like, and it's wild. The amount of people that I've talked to in the last year who have just on a dime quit drinking and
Mhm.
decided it wasn't for them is wild. I have like a whole list going, and it is people that are not in the woo-woo world either. Like,
Yeah.
there's just people who don't even know I have a podcast who like it's wild. And some people, they're not even having to take breaks. It's just like
Uh-huh.
a sudden stopping of drinking. So I think that's going to happen more and more. And I do think our bodies are becoming a lot more sensitive. So listen to your body, you know?
Absolutely.
Um, it's interesting. So just so everybody knows too, Sarah is a 6'2" splenic projector. I am seeing I have, you guys know, I have a lot of projector clients and projector people in my world. I think just y'all projectors like know that you aren't a generator, like deep, deep down. And you're like, I just want somebody to tell me that nothing's wrong with me. So I get a lot of projectors in the human design world, and projectors are having a lot of physical symptoms lately if they're not listening to their body. You will get exhausted, you will have repulsions to things, you will be getting sick, like eczema, gut issues, like all of that kind of stuff. And I will tell you one thing that can very much help is just removing alcohol for a little bit, whether it's 30 days, 60, 90 days. I know there's different, and this is maybe something we can share about in our happy hour workshop. There's certain increments of time where you start really noticing big shifts. I
Yes.
know 10 days is one because that's when alcohol actually totally gets out of your system. And I think learning that was what, like back in 2020, when it was when I was like, well, shit. I don't think I've had, other than being
I
pregnant, I don't think I've had a 10-day break ever in my life, you
rarely
know?
do people do.
you
Mhm.
know because you'll be like, oh, I'm going to take this weekend off, or I'm going to take the week. I'm so good, I take Monday through Thursday off from drinking, but I drink Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it's like, well, you've never really had a break. Like, your liver doesn't get a break.
Mhm.
And only on day 10 is when it actually starts regenerating and being healthier. So I think 10 days, 30 days,
Mhm.
90 days. I know at a year is when some big brain chemistry stuff happens. And I
Mhm.
definitely felt that back when I took a year off, but then I started drinking again here and there. Um, and it was only a handful of times in that whole year, but it still was there. And so my brain chemistry didn't have a second to experience that big shift. So um, yeah, I want to talk about that. I'd love to talk about in our workshop uh some like different, if people are open to it, some different things that they could do even before stopping drinking, whether that's breath work.
Yeah.
That can be a big thing that sort of puts you in a different frequency and can make that desire go away. Breath work, I know I did combo, which is that frog poison stuff. It's totally we can talk about all these things. There can
Yeah.
be legal things that we talk about and plant medicine, non-legal things that we can talk about. We'll talk about all of the stuff. Some of it might not be for podcast episode airing, but you'll want to hear it because I there were so many little tips and tricks that I tried out. Some worked really well, some were just a waste of time and money, and we can talk through all of those. But is there anything else that you feel like you want people to sort of start, if people are wanting to come to our happy hour workshop and ask questions and play around with this idea of taking a little bit of a break, is there anything that you think people should consider, or do you want them to start sort of like just thinking about on a regular basis before they take a break?
I love that. I do think a little bit of maybe a journal practice on like deeper desires can be really helpful, because I think a surprising thing that happens when you cut out alcohol is the newfound free time you have,
Mhm.
especially if you're sort of like an after work evening wind down drinker. I think that's something that really surprises people. They're like, well, what do I do with my time?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I do think it's a good idea to, yeah, have some ideas of things you've never done and you've thought you want to do your whole life, things like this, like get a little dreamy. And because like deep healing work, I think is an inevitable outcome of going alcohol free.
Mm-hmm.
And right, even before you stop or decide to take a break or like right very consciously not consume for a period of time, you're right, you're gonna heal your body and mind, and there is some mindset work I think involved, because I agree with what you were saying about willpower. It's like, sure, you can white knuckle your way through like anything, but I don't want that. I don't want to live like that. And, I want to watch other people live like a free, full, fulfilling AF life, So, and mine really kind of started with a similar thing. I didn't get a voice. I wrote in my journal for like a year. Please let this be easy.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden one day it was.
Yeah.
And, and right, I wasn't having urges and it didn't feel like willpower, and the days just keep adding and adding. And so yeah, I might sort of journal on some like deep desires, just to think about like what are things I would want to maybe bring in with the space that I'm making in my life by removing alcohol.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love it. So, we are releasing this podcast episode on August 7th. So, in 2 weeks and 2 days, we will see you guys in the happy hour workshop. It's totally free. We're not going to be selling you anything at the end of it. It's just a safe container for us to answer questions and give our little secret tips and tricks for getting yourself ready to take a break. And I think it's going to be really, really good. So, submit an anonymous question or jump on live and ask your question, and we will see you in there in about 2 weeks. Sarah, thank you so
It's
much.
been
It's been awesome. I know you're in alchemy, and we've been talking a lot recently about all of this kind of stuff, but it's just been really awesome to see you find this passion and this fulfilling new career for
yeah.
yourself. And I know you're going to help so many women. So thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank y'all for listening.